Hey, good morning, everybody. Here with John and Kevin. This is sort of a restart for the Connecticut Retirement Securities Authority, something that was passed some years ago, 2016, I believe, with good need. Especially folks who work for smaller businesses often don't have retirement security, often don't take advantage of a 401k, and put at a great disadvantage later in life. So I think the legislature, in their wisdom, put in place this authority that will give people an opportunity at much lower cost to get the retirement security they deserve. It's on an optional basis. You can opt out anytime you need to do it. And what I really hear is announcing the fact that we've got a new way to manage it, and that's going to be with my friend Kevin Lembo, the controller, over at the controller's office. I'd like to say more broadly that I came into office a little over a year ago, and we took a look at a lot of these quasis. And some are beautifully managed and hitting the ground running and give us the innovation and flexibility that they were originally planned for. Some need better leadership. There's no question about it. We had to do a restart for the Port Authority, and we needed to do a restart for our Retirement Security Authority. And so it's a few years later. But working with Kevin, working with his team that already handles the retirement security for some of our state employees, we got the right people leading this operation. And he just told me that he hopes we might be able to get the first, test going on this before the end of this year, so people can have some confidence. 600,000 people have no 401k, nothing to count upon except for their Social Security. I think people, AARP, each and every one of you knows how important it is you plan accordingly. This gives people the option to do it, hopefully starting at an earlier age, so that your retirement is secure right here in the great state of Connecticut. With that, I'd like to introduce Kevin Lembo.
Good morning. Thank you, Governor. So clearly an important effort. The governor has laid it out very clearly, so I don't need to revisit that ground. But over the last almost 2 years, the Retirement and Security Authority has met. They have gone out to RFP for legal services. They have gone out to RFP for an investment consultant. They've been busy getting work done. But I think we would argue that the pace needs to be stepped up. There are people who are waiting for us to get this done and, most importantly, to get it right. As the governor points out, my office presently manages the 457, 403B, the alternative retirement programs. Those are voluntary programs, but if you looked at them side by side with what the Retirement Security Authority is proposing, they look very similar to one another. These are employee dollars only. They are managed by an outside source, and they move from payroll to that source for management. So I look forward to getting going. And it's a busy time, but what's one more thing? I think before we turn it over to John Erlinghauser, Governor, if you want me to do that, I just want to acknowledge that Tom Sennett, the Vice Chair of the board, is here. And Tom, thank you for all of your work. John from AARP.
Thank you very much, Kevin. First of all, I want to thank Governor Lamont and his administration for being really on the forefront of pointing out the importance of this authority and stepping forward and taking the reins to set us on the right path. So we certainly appreciate that, Governor Lamont, and that's keeping a promise he made when he ran for governor and responded to the AARP voter guide that he was totally committed to making this program work. So it was really grateful of your work on making that promise come true. I also want to point out and thank Kevin Lembo, because people should be aware he shepherded through the whole concept for 2 years when he led the study authority. And so it was his leadership then that got us through a tumultuous period when there was a lot of uncertainty about these programs and whether or not they would work. And his leadership made that happen. And so that's why AARP and our volunteers and members and the state of Connecticut is very proud and grateful that Kevin is going to take on this project, because we know with his leadership and the support from Governor Lamont and his administration, we will get this thing running. It's very critical. There's 600,000 people in the state of Connecticut have no ability to save for retirement at work. This is a no cost to business, no cost to the state proposition. And over the course of 10 years, if we can get people in the state of Connecticut to save $1,000 more a year for retirement, there'll be a net savings in social service programs to the state of Connecticut of $90 million. So this is a win-win for everybody. It's a win-win for business, it's a win-win for workers, and it's a win-win for the taxpayers of the state of Connecticut. I would be remiss if I didn't mention two other people who were the legislative champions of this program for multiples of years. That would be our Senate President, Marty Looney, and our Speaker of the House, Joe Arsemowitz, who championed this thing for multiples of years. So I'm very grateful to them, and we're looking forward to getting this thing up and running, and I'm very hopeful that we will be up and running by the end of the year. So we look forward to continuing the partnership and working with everybody. Thank you.
Any questions for Kevin?
Or the governor.
Well, do you need legislative approval before you go out to bid on this to have somebody to administer?
No, all of the permissions are for the board are already in place, and they're acting upon those. And as for the appointment of a chair, that is also embedded in the statute, and it's at the governor's choice as well.
So the only thing that would need legislative approval would be the additional position in your office?
There is a little bit of money, I think $75,000 in the budget to fund another position in my office, just to recognize the additional work we're going to be taking on to keep the trains running on time and make sure the board is staffed in a way that helps them to do their work.
And do you think that when you go out to bid, I mean, you'll be looking at, will you be asking Oregon or another state to be helping you?
Sure. We've been in contact with Oregon, with Illinois, with California, and with other programs that are frankly a little bit behind us to learn from them and not repeat some of the work that they've done. There was an idea of bolting onto an existing program so that we didn't have to reinvent it all, but rather just put our brand on it and link onto something that someone else was doing. The more we dig on that, it looks like it is probably not possible, not because it's not possible, but because the players in the market are not necessarily interested in doing it that way with us. And that has little to do with us and more to do with the reimbursement model for them.
All right, so remind me, when is it an opt-in and when will people be contributing?
So we'll get you dates because clearly the lag in standing up the program has also moved the dates, and so those are going to need to be looked at again. The board will make a determination about how to sort of put those dates in place, but obviously that's step 2 or 3. First, you got to stand up the program.
And it's an opt-out.
Yes, as Governor points out, it's an opt-out for any of those employees or the companies that choose to come in. If their employees decide they don't want to participate, they can certainly not participate.
And is one position enough? You mentioned a second ago you have a lot on your plate. Is one position enough to do this?
Yeah, of course, we'll make it go. So we do have some infrastructure in the office as well, as I tried to point out, around the plans that we're already running. The learning from that will support what we're doing. But, you know, if one person isn't responsible for a thing, then no one's responsible for a thing. So we need somebody whose primary job it is to keep the board moving and, frankly, to keep me on task when that's necessary.
Thanks, everybody. One more?
I have an off-topic question on the subject of clean energy. And it's regarding, recently Katie Dykes, the DEP chair, said she was taking a serious look at exiting the ISO New England regional energy market, saying its market structures were essentially favoring natural gas at the expense of state clean energy goals. I wonder if withdrawing from that market wholly or partially is something that you've thought about or something you would consider.
Yeah, ISO is the regional collaborative that makes sure we have enough power to keep things going, but they don't take into account, you know, carbon emissions and global warming and climate change to a degree to which I think they should. So I'm 100% with Katie that we ought to take a second look at our relationship with ISO.
Is withdrawing something that is on the table?
Something that's on the table. Thanks, everybody.
We want to get a group shot with you.